In this video, I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips or things you might not know about caring for your paddleboard. Hi, I'm Ian Townshend, an avid adventurer and stand-up paddleboard enthusiast. Stand-up paddleboarding is one of my favourite hobbies, and it's one of the fastest growing outdoor adventure activities. It's so accessible, it's fun, it's relaxing, and there's so many spots across the UK where you can safely get on the water. So here are my top 5 tips for caring for your paddleboard. Tip 1 is inflating your paddleboard. Inflating your paddleboard correctly minimises the risk of damaging your board over the long term. First of all, you want to roll your paddleboard out onto a flat surface, but make sure there are no sharp objects lying around. Next, you want to open the valve cover. Then you want to make sure that the valve pin is up. Then attach the pump to the valve and make sure your pump is set to number 1. You want to inflate your board to around 10 psi before switching the pump to number 2. You'd usually inflate your paddleboard to somewhere between 15 and 22 psi, and that depends on the weight of the person paddling and the water conditions. But you should always check the specifics of your board. Overinflating could cause a puncture.
Bloody hard work, this.
Then just remove the hose and close the valve cap.
Woo! Warmed up, ready.
Tip number 2 is cleaning your board. Before you get started, you want to take your board away from any sandy or muddy areas to a nice clean dry spot. Positioning your board before you clean it's really important. Always stand it on its side or its tail, never nose down. If there's any excess dirt or water, you can always wipe it off with a towel. Fresh or salt water can affect the board differently, so always make sure you just give it a good rinse with a hose when you come off the water.
So the best solution when you come off the water is obviously to have a nice big bucket like this, some warm water and a bit of washing up liquid,
and give your board a gentle scrub with a soft brush.
Obviously, there are lots of times where this just isn't available, so sometimes I keep one of these in the car with a flask of water, and that does the job.
You can always use a toothbrush to remove the most stubborn marks and get to those hard to reach areas.
Make sure you don't forget about your valve care. You can get all sorts in here, salt water, you can get little bits of debris and stuff, so make sure you clean these out really well.
Now to rinse and dry your board. Make sure you clean the board really thoroughly. And don't forget about the underside of the board. Protecting your board from UV rays is really important. Not normally an issue in this country, sadly, but if it is particularly sunny, you can always use a UV spray. You'd usually just apply this with a soft cotton cloth, and this can also protect from discoloration or damage from salt water. Tip 3, to wax or not to wax. Waxing is less important now that most people are using inflatable boards that have traction pads and give you the grip you need. If your traction pad is fully intact, you shouldn't have any issues. Avoiding wearing trainers on your board and going barefoot if you can handle it, or wearing wetsuit boots if you need to, just helps you to stop wearing down your traction pad. Using a hard wax is quite intensive and can damage the fabric of the board, so I wouldn't recommend using it. If you really do feel like you need some extra grip, you can use a product like a Mueller Magic Spray, which you just spray on and it washes off. Tip 4 is all about deflating your board. Similar to when you inflate your board, when you deflate, you walk to the back of the board where the valve is. Remove the valve cap and push down on the pin, which will release the air straight away. But just be mindful of wildlife, dogs or small children, because it does make a loud noise. Tip number 5 is storing your board. If you're not going to use your board for a while and you've got the space, it's a good idea to get it back out of the bag and inflate it to around 5 psi. That just prevents any long-term creases that might damage or puncture your board. If you do inflate it, make sure you leave it on its side or its tail. Never store the board on its nose. Make sure you're not storing your board in a damp room, and you can always use those silicone bags that you find in your jackets or shoes to help keep your board dry. If you are storing your paddleboard partially inflated, just make sure the weight's evenly distributed, because if it's not, the paddleboard can deform over time. I hope this video has given you a bit of an insight into my passion and also some top tips for looking after your paddleboard and getting you back out on the water as soon as possible. For more tips and tricks and adventure content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.